Roger Waters has been on Piers Morgan again today, defending Maduro's regime, defending Iran, and the protesters. Somehow he's able to hold both of these things at the same time. And, as always, criticizing America for pretty much every problem in the world. And this is what we'll discuss today. The interview itself, I think, was over an hour. And when I was cutting out the clips, I pretty much was just like had like everything. So we have a lot of clips to go through. So let's go into it. We probably won't even have time to cover everything. I recommend people checking it out if they want to see how some people think. But yeah, Jonathan, any opening thoughts before we go into the thing? And
I do have some opening thoughts on Roger Waters, because Roger Waters is the equivalent to today's young person, as I made a little list. Milton Berle or Jack Benny or Sid Caesar or Raymond Burr or Buddy Ebsen were when I was a kid. He is absolutely irrelevant. The Roger Waters of today has no bearing on the Roger Waters that created whatever music. We were talking more before the show. Did anyone listen to Pink Floyd? The only people I knew who listened to Pink Floyd in high school were complete stoners. I never found the music particularly interesting or danceable or fun. It was all kind of dreary to me. But Roger Waters is so non-influential that I almost bristle that, Piers brings him on. I mean, you're really scraping the bottom of the barrel. As I said, whatever Roger Waters accomplished, it was like effing 50 years ago. And all he's done since is spew BS.
yeah, when it comes to me, I'm generally trying to be very open to the type of artists people like and listen to. But yeah, like you said, like this is an artist. This is like somebody who made music. This is not an intellectual. This is not somebody who has any bearing on like international, like foreign policy or anything in that regard. And yeah, the fact that somebody like this like represents a certain amount of population to like warrant an invite from Piers Morgan. And I think something even more importantly, the fact that many of the things he says, he's not like a crazy person with his opinions. A lot of things are simply said by intellectuals. They just say them in a much hidden way. They are less brisk and open about what they're actually saying. But yeah, when you listen to Roger Waters, it's everything like people of his ilk have been saying. He just says it more openly. But Stuart, any thoughts, any opening thoughts from you?
Yeah, my initial thought was much like Jonathan. Like, why is this guy on Piers Morgan? What does he,
he's like Soupy Sales was when we were a kid.
He's just like some old dude. Yeah, irrelevant. He did some art that was interesting to some people. Yeah, I was never a particular fan, but they had a couple songs, that were sort of part of my childhood. I, remember them fondly, but I never owned a Pink Floyd album, but I think he had some talent. But what he has to say about current events and politics is like, why would I'm just sort of mystified why anyone would give him this kind of platform. It's bizarre to me.
We have clips. Should we demonstrate?
Yeah, I was just seeing something in the chat that I wanted to read, but I cannot find it. So let's take a look. So on Piers Morgan, they started talking first about Venezuela and then went into Iran. I have one clip.
He's a supporter of Maduro, correct?
Yeah. So let's actually take.
Maduro.
Let's take a watch.
As you know, I think 60% of the countries around the world believe that the last election was rigged, that he banned his main opponent from even running, that he claimed victory when he hadn't won, that he stayed in office when he shouldn't have done. That's the antithesis of democracy. It's the kind of thing you see in Russia.
Now, you're talking about, if you're right about this, and I don't know whether you are right about the 60% or not, but that would be 60% of the leaders of the governments of countries around the world. not the countries. If the countries are the people who live in those countries, it's a bit like other things that we're going to get onto later, probably, like Gaza. Most of the people all over the world despise the genocide that's going on in Palestine now. So we can go to that later if you want, but what I'm saying is that what we tend to see is the propaganda put out by the governments of the other countries in the world. So
but
what we hear is what the American government and the English government and the French government and the EU and the blah, blah, blah have to say about the Bolivarian Revolution. Okay, not.
So here is like a first interesting thing. He goes on about how it's just the governments that say the elections are rigged, not the people. And here is like a thing, like what point is he even making? Like I'm trying to say, or when he says like countries do propaganda like America or England, but Venezuela no, like Maduro does no propaganda. Like there's nothing, like we can trust everything he says. I mean, Jonathan, you seem to.
I'm not going to mention his or her name because they're not a YouTube member, and we need YouTube members. It's £5 a month. It goes great towards helping us keep original material inspired by Ayn Rand on every day of the week. His point is, don't do drugs, kid. I mean, don't do drugs, kids. I mean, I can only imagine what Mr. Rand would think of Waters' absolutely incoherent rambling. One thing we're sure of is that Israel is committing genocide. It's like that can't help but like come out to the surface whenever he's given a microphone or a platform to speak for. But he's a rambling, incoherent mess, as we'll see throughout this interview. But he seems to have a determinist sense of democracy. Whatever the people vote for, that's good. The people vote for slavery. Hey, that's what the people voted for. There's no sense of the notion of individual rights by basis of being an individual human being. He's I don't know what we decide. How would you describe him besides an incoherent lunatic? But he certainly does believe in democracy in the worst sense.
Somebody says an anarchist obviously hates governments. I don't know if this guy like considers himself an anarchist, if that's because like a lot of these people, they only consider themselves anarchists when it comes to like Western governments, right? Like, we hate the state unless it's the Communist Party of China or the IRGC or Maduro or in many cases Soviet Union, right? So it's like, okay, what am I like? What are we actually like talking about here? It's like Jonathan said, so like incoherent. I mean, Stuart, what do you make of this one?
Well, certainly, I will see later that he does kind of reify the idea of democracy or what the people want. So most of the people of Iran aren't coming out in the streets, so they must support the government, and so the government is legitimate. What he lacks entirely, which I guess is not uncommon for his ilk, is the idea that there is an objective reality. That, okay, I mean, he's right that governments produce propaganda, our government, and as you said, Venezuela's government. But what's left out of that is the idea that there is an actual objective truth that can be gotten at. The elections were either stolen or they weren't. The process was either legitimate or it wasn't. And it may not be easy to determine that, but it is possible to dig into that and determine it. It isn't just a matter of, oh, well, the majority of people think it's legitimate, therefore it's legitimate. It's like, no, there's an actual process we could go through, an epistemological process that would lead us to knowledge. And that's what he just has no concept of, that there is such a process.
Yeah, but even sort of because you're right about the propaganda, but even then, like trying to compare like Iranian propaganda to like American propaganda. Iranian propaganda is like, we need to get rid of the Zionist state, we need to attack international shipping, and this is all, and we need to, and all the people we are murdering right now, all of those are Zionist, like either Zionist agents or like Zionist sympathizers, right? And American propaganda, it's like, what is that movie I'm trying to remember with about the planes and pilots, and somebody please remind me. Okay, somebody will remind me in the chat. But it's like American propaganda is like, yes, Top Gun. That's like technically American propaganda, right? It's like shows America like destroying maybe Iranian state, we don't know, but like very clearly in that, or you know, Uncle Sam saying we need you to like go fight in the war. American propaganda is like, okay, we are great and we need to destroy the Nazis, like, and trying to make those two comparisons like it's incoherent. But Jonathan, do you want to say, or next clip?
In the chat, I'm not going to mention his name because he is not a YouTube member. His point is that Pink Floyd was never the thoughtful music fan's choice. Ayn Rand's aesthetics, this is his opinion, can't include Floyd. I agree with that. Steely Dan, yes. And I wholeheartedly agree with that. Although I remember Dr. Peikoff telling a story about how Miss Rand, in effect, disapproved of jazz, the improvisational, the free-flowingness, the uncertainty, the uniqueness of each performance. You know, a real contrast to her tiddlywink music, which was so tightly controlled and so emphatically presented. But I agree with that about Pink Floyd's musical aesthetic. I wouldn't describe it particularly objectivist in my opinion at all.
Sure. I mean, we should say there is no like objectivist music. There might be, you know, a certain type of art that is more aligned to, let's say, like aesthetic of like romantic realism is the term, or you know, more according to Romantic Manifesto, right? That Ayn Rand has written. But I haven't listened to any Pink Floyd, so I'm not taking a stance on that. But I do want to say on the jazz part, because I'm wondering, because technically, like, jazz doesn't assume that everything is like like improvisational. Like if you take like Whiplash, right? All of the music in Whiplash is jazz, as far as I understand, but it's like very structured and very specific. And we know that Leonard Peikoff likes Whiplash, so I'm wondering what. Yeah, but let's take.
And Dr. Peikoff loves jazz as well. I remember seeing him perform at Ocon many years ago, and he's a wonderful jazz pianist. And he took that up really later in life. So. You know, yes, you can be an objectivist or be a fan of Ayn Rand's and absolutely love and enjoy jazz, as I and probably, my guess is Stuart does as well.
Yeah, Stuart, you want to jump in?
I was just going to say that Dr. John Ridpath, if you're familiar with him, was a huge jazz fanatic. He actually took me to a jazz show in Toronto years ago. So yeah, objectivists don't have to follow Ayn Rand's musical tastes. I don't think, not necessary. And I think Pink Floyd's, again, it's not my kind of music. I don't think it's objectivist music. That doesn't mean that it's not of value. I know there are people that do find value in it, and that's fine. But that doesn't change the fact that Roger Waters is now a nightmare of a human being. So.
And as I understand it, the rest of his band has really tried to distance themselves, because obviously he's destroying whatever value the Pink Floyd brand and catalog and record sales. I mean, a lot of these old bands are getting zillions of dollars. They sell off the rights of their record sales. I don't know if maybe Pink Floyd has already done that. But even in touring, I mean, everywhere they go, I remember there was always this controversy because they would put up like a big inflatable pig, you remember, with like a Jewish star on it. I mean, it's a disgusting imagery everywhere we go. So this shtick, if you will, is not new from Waters. He has been riding this pony for a decade or more.
Oh, I didn't realize.
So yeah, I know we're trying to filibuster, but yeah, let's actually listen to more of Roger.
Do you support the protesters in Iran at the moment?
Well, if it was the shopkeepers who went, oh my God, inflation's going through the roof, let's do something about it. Yeah, of course I do. Why shouldn't they say? And so did the government. The government sent the police out to protect those grocers, those business owners, those ordinary working people in Iran. Okay? And they were attacked by gangs of armed thugs who murdered, we believe, we don't know, the truth isn't all out, but armed thugs, probably organized by MI6 and the CIA.
Right.
Murdered
So sorry,
thousands
just to be
of
clear.
people.
So we support
Of
protest.
course, is behind it. Of course.
We should say, so here's like no evidence. Like I haven't seen a single report of like even the like nothing about, like I haven't heard about MI6 in some time. Probably the last time I searched them with another conspiracy theory. Like he has nowhere this idea. He goes that he supports the protest, the people who go against inflation. He like tries to phrase it as if this was just like economic protest instead of people like really being fed up with the whole regime. Like when it comes to like we have protests right now in Slovakia, right? And you could say those are economic protests, but not really. I mean, economics are part of it because when the life gets really bad, the part of life that we are talking about is economics, but the source is political, is always. So people, it might start with inflation, or that the currency is getting debased, or like a number of things, but it will turn into political. Like you cannot have it, and we understand that the reason why people are on the streets is political. They want to stand up, and he's straight up like doing propaganda for the Iranian state, right? He's saying, oh, the police, they are just protecting the property from the rioters. I mean, come on, like he would never accept that anywhere else. Stuart?
What's striking to me, and this may be a little off topic, but I've heard those exact same words coming from the right wing here in the U.S. about Minnesota, the protests there. That it's being funded by the left. It's all they've got the same shadowy it's a conspiracy. The ICE and the border patrol, they're just keeping law and order, and but people are getting killed, but that's just what happens when you're carrying out law and order. So probably Waters would not have that take on what's happening in the U.S., but his wording is exactly the same, and it's equally hollow. There's no evidence that MI6 or Mossad or whatever is his boogeyman is behind this, and why would they need to be? Why can't Iranian people be fed up with one of the most repressive regimes on the planet? Why is that hard to believe?
I mean, his hatred for the West just seethes.
It's exactly.
I cannot keep it down. I want to think, because whereas perhaps my cohort Daniel might say, thank you very much, I really want to thank you, Gail, truly, for your super chat. And I want to thank Roland, who says, here's a super chat in support of the show, probably organized by the CIA or MI6. Yes, absolutely. My only perspective is, I mean, Piers obviously scraping the bottom of the barrel here. Waters' complete incoherence. Maybe we'll put in the show notes. Watch Miss Rand on the Johnny Carson show going back to the 1960s, how in 8 or 10 or 12 minutes, she completely blows Mr. Carson's mind, the audience mind, introducing rational selfishness, kind of her perspective on the times. It's such an outstanding interview in exactly this format, as against, kind of Waters blathering and Piers, in effect, allowing him to blather.
Yeah, and again, when it comes to this protest, because I mean, Stuart mentioned the Minnesota protest, but you could even take the earlier like BLM protest, right? You had the large part that is, sort of largely peaceful, and then you have parts when it goes crazy, when it becomes a riot, when people start destroying people's property, or in the case of Minnesota, when people start like attacking actually ICE agent, or trying to run them over with a car. Not specifically in the killing that I mean, but like separately, you might have those things, but you would never like say, well, now this whole thing, like every single person who like goes out and protests now basically like deserves to be killed, because this is what he's like saying with Iran, right? Because, and this might happen, like if you have like so many, like we know about like some Iranian cities have been like completely taken over, right? You might have some people who just go out and try to like destroy somebody's property. But the idea that like the state of Iran is like just trying to preserve property rights of people so the protesters don't go crazy and things don't go out of order is insane. He's like applying what America would normally do, right? Like actually trying to both allow protests and preserve the property rights of people and not getting it out of control. And he's applying the standard to Iran that has no desire to like uphold property rights. I mean, we are talking about the state where a bunch of oil companies are owned by IRGC directly, not like a state, not people. IRGC, the Revolutionary Guard, directly control parts of the economy.
I mean, he's a real egalitarian. You know, he doesn't think that Western ideas are better than, you know, tribalist ideas or Islamist ideas. And hey, if the people vote in a government where slavery exists, well, it's just what it is. I mean, he's just so, Miss Rand's comment about, you know, I'm paraphrasing, but in effect, ideas move the world. You see it over and over again. And, you know, Walter seems kind of devoid of that, you know, devoid of knowledge of ideas and the importance of them when it comes to the success of any civilization long term.
Now, we'll take a look at another clip, although I do want to mention, I got messages from Alex, and now I see it even on news sites. Apparently, there is some infiltration from Jordan of some terrorist infiltration coming from Jordan into Israel. The Air Force have been deployed and activated, so if something happens, I'll hopefully have updates on it. But yeah, just wanted to let people know that this is happening right now. But let's take a look at another clip.
There's
So just to be
Yes.
clear, you support the protesters and you support the regime?
Yes, of course.
Right.
I would love regimes where people could protest, like the good woman who was just murdered in Minneapolis, and the government could govern for the benefit of the people. I live in the United States, where the government does not govern for the benefit of the people. It governs for the benefit of the oligarchs and the very rich, and everyone knows it.
Right.
Okay, so I can't support the current... Sorry, go on.
Well,
So here again, right? We can't support the Trump's presidency because of what has been happening. But you know, I couldn't agree in the like instance, because he seems to be almost saying like the whole American state is like illegitimate because of what's happening. But Iran and the government of Iran, he can support it, but he cannot do America like.
Well, it's so hilarious because he's sitting back with like his fancy little mug in America
with the New York skyline behind him.
Yeah, and in a country where you have the freedom of speech, and Miss Rand talked about one of the hallmarks of dictatorship when you lose the freedom of speech. You know, he's sitting back and saying, "I live in America where all my rights are trampled on, and everything is for the oligarchs." You know, it's like, well, get off your ass and move to Iran if you like it so much. You know, go if you like Maduro, you'll love the leader of North Korea right now. I mean, these civilization exists, so it's just so funny that him to like chill back with his fancy coffee in his New York apartment, bitching about how terrible America is for a guy who hasn't had a hit song for literally half of a century.
Stuart?
You know, I mean, it's incredibly typical. That's what, you know, the leftist elite has always done, is, you know, from their ivory tower in their, you know, their fancy suits, drinking their fancy coffees, criticizing America. That said, you know, there's plenty to criticize about America, especially right now. But it's completely hypocritical coming from him, and contrasting it to Iran. I mean, you know, we do still have at least a semblance of freedom of speech here, which has not been the case in Iran since the 79 revolution. It's just absurd to equate the two. But it's typical. It's typical. That's, his ilk have always done that. They're in America. They're taking advantage of the American prosperity, the American rights that are protected, and simultaneously claiming that America is this horrible, horrible thing. That's always done that.
And even this idea that both America and Iran have problem. Like when it comes to America, and this is sad things that happen. Both the killing of Alex Pretty and Rene Good. That's a terrible thing to happen, right? But we are talking about that. Like that's all we are talking about for the last when was Rene Good killing? That was like 2 weeks ago. Like that's all we've been talking. Not only all America has been talking about. Slovakia is talking about it. Our news are about like American, like the killing of Alex Pretty. That's all it's about. When George Floyd was murdered, and that was a murder that was decided by courts. The person who did it, Derek Chauvin, went into prison for decades, and you had nationwide protests for a long time. And compared it to Iran, tens of thousands have been murdered by the state. And you don't hear anything. You think Iran is talking about what's happening? You think anybody like their local news are talking about like what's happening? Barely we are talking about what's happening in Iran. Like this is insane. Whenever something bad happens in America, everybody immediately knows about it. How long did it take for people to find out about Rene Good? I think I found about it within like half an hour because I checked social media. How quickly do people find out how many people were even murdered in Iran? Even that we don't know. Even broadly, it's hard to guess. And even if we have number, this guy Roger Waters wouldn't recognize it. Jonathan,
Dan, you're absolutely right. I mean, these I believe terrible murders are aberrations in America, but they're part and parcel of Islamist regimes like the Republic of Iran. I mean, they disappear people all the time. If your burqa isn't straight, or they don't like the way you're wearing, if you're not praying the right way, if you happen to like a member of the same sex, or maybe you're dancing or listening to the wrong kind of music, they disappear you. And to your point, there is no like outrage, there is no media, there is no discussion of it, there is no challenge to authority. And some of the most horrific images I've seen in recent weeks were the images of family members going from, in Iran, they just had all the bodies piled up in black bags, and members having to go from one black bag to the next to try to just find the body of their 20-year-old kid who was out waving a flag or saying more freedom or taking off her burqa. I mean, it is so outrageous that Walters is on the side of the regime. I mean,
it's disgusting.
It's
Stuart?
Yeah, I mean, it really is unreal to me that anyone could be on the side of this regime. I mean, it's so blatant. There's lots of places in the world where you can say, well, there's good and there's bad. The government does, that most countries are mixed. The Iranian government is just all bad. It's just an evil, evil government. And if you know anything about what they're doing internationally, the terrorism they've supported, and then what they're doing to their own people, I mean, this isn't like a borderline case. This isn't ambiguous. This is an evil regime, and it's just unbelievable that he supports it.
And it's a little bit like disappointing, because what if people like Walters or others, I mean, Reagan, to his credit, and, Miss Rand, I believe famously did not vote for Ronald Reagan the first time around, as I remember.
Yes, she would not.
She was not a supporter of Reagan, but, Reagan, at least to his credit, identified the evil empire. And, people in Walter's position could speak out for actual legitimate protesters, legitimate freedom fighters. Like, isn't that what he's on the side of? Then again, like, I've seen his performance shtick, and like he dresses up in SS garb. Like, what the fuck is that?
Let's
right? I mean, you've seen this video of him.
Let's take a look at another clip.
So why are so many Iranian people taking to the streets to protest against their own regime?
They're not. They were protesting against inflation and against the devaluation of the rye or whatever the currency is called. That's what they were. And they stopped protesting the minute anybody started talking about regime change.
They haven't stopped protesting.
Or reimposing
Well, they haven't stopped protesting.
The Shah's family.
Where are you getting this from?
Well, I'm not there. I'm not there. So
no,
I'll
you're
have
not
to
there.
take your
But where are
word
you
on
getting
that.
your information?
No, but I have lots of friends who are there because I'm philosophically quite close to the people of Iran. All right, and the mass of the people. This is what you keep not understanding: is the mass of the people are absolutely solidly opposed to the foreign interference. And this, of course, includes all of the sanctions against Iran that have caused the massive inflation and the devaluation.
Okay, Jesus, there's so much to go through. Again, you know how he goes, the protests have stopped as soon as it started being about regime change. Oh, how do you know that? Well, I mean, I don't know. Like, what is this? So he's just made stuff up again? These protests haven't stopped at any point. Maybe he started hearing about it because Iran shut down the internet and there was much less information coming out of Iran. But no, these protests have been growing larger and larger. Some cities have been taken over, and the Iranian response was massacres, killing tens of thousands of Iranians in the process, even hanging some of the police because they refused to shoot at the protests to shut them down. Then he goes to the same shtick about this is just about economics. It's about the sanctions. Your average Iranian is blaming like America for every single problem. I mean, maybe they are, and to the extent like Iranians are blaming like America for their problems, that's like their problem, not a problem of us.
They're victims. I mean, they're victims. All of these people are victims. And when you see, the image, and we talked about it, the image of that young woman lighting her cigarette. Now that ended up being from a protest in Ontario, but just that image of that young woman lighting a cigarette, no facial covering, strong young woman with a picture of the Ayatollah, and when I grew up, it was the Soviet Union. And, there were these classes people called refuseniks, people trying to leave that weren't allowed to leave, people yearning to be free. And, that still exists on Earth. It's so like frustrating, ideas move a culture. Ideas are what move a culture. And, you've got, millions and millions of people living under religious theocracy only because of the terrible ideas that people like Roger Waters from his, penthouse in Manhattan propagate. And it's just too bad because they have no knowledge of what rights are and why those in Iran, even the shopkeepers, are being denied them from the get-go.
Yeah, I mean, just quickly, because you mentioned the girl, you said she was from Canada, but even that, people might remember from a few years ago, the Mahsa, what's the name, just so you remember, the Mahsa Amini protest, the girl who was killed in custody for not wearing hijab, or that's what she was arrested for. And you had many women coming to the streets without the hijab to basically protest the government. And I think, I'm not sure if we played that part, but Roger Waters said he supported that. What do you mean you support? What does it mean to support? The government was killing people and shutting down these protests violently. Not to mention even the justification for it, right? We are talking about protest. Ginger says she was tortured and killed. So even worse. But what are we talking? We are talking about a girl getting arrested for not wearing a piece of clothing. This is not something we deal with. It's understandable that government wants to preserve peace and shut these down. No, this is an insane thing to go about. Stuart?
Yeah, I mean, a couple things. So, he claims to know what the vast majority of Iranians want. How would he know that? In an unfree country, there are no polls.
He's very philosophically close to them.
He's very philosophically close to these people. Yeah. I mean, it's just such an absurd claim to make. I mean, I don't claim to know what the majority of the Iranian people want. And I'm sure there are many people who blame the US. And obviously there are many people who support the regime, or it wouldn't have lasted this long. That doesn't give the regime legitimacy. Again, his whole premise is sort of this, majority opinion makes right. But interestingly, in a society where there's no actual freedom, who gets to decide what the majority believes? That they're not getting to vote, they're not getting to express themselves. So the regime will tell you, oh, we have the support of the majority, and then idiots like Waters will say, yep, see, they've got the majority support.
Yeah, and Jonathan?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I mean, I always liked how Rand talked about that. Like, I don't remember, maybe it was in Capitalism, and we will look for it, but talked about how countries that don't respect their own citizens' rights have no right. There is no right to enslave. There's no right to torture. Your own citizenry. It's like, she'd really, definite perspectives on that, and I always really respected that, because I guess I grew up with this sense, almost like, well, that's the way they do it, and that we do it there, we do it there. Every policy works, but that's not the case. There's good guys and there's bad guys, and the Iranian mullahs are bad guys.
Yeah, and I just want to mention something from earlier, because we talked about why doesn't Roger Waters move to Iran, and there's the basic calling out of hypocrisy, but I like to always focus on the positives. I mean, if you hold these values, I mean, why would you want to live in America? And this is from if I disagreed with, and I disagree with a lot of things when it comes to Slovakia, and I dislike most of them, but I still, if I weigh everything together, it makes sense for me to live. But if it ever turned out that this is against my values, I would move out. So if Roger Waters really thinks West is so bad and America is so bad, I mean, I'm not calling for his extradition, but I'm talking to his values. I mean, wouldn't he want to live? If this really means something to him, wouldn't he actually want to support it? Wouldn't he actually want to move out? So it's either that he doesn't care about his values, is self-sacrificial, he doesn't care about anything, so he stays, or he recognizes that, yeah, Iran is a shithole, and I don't mean just not because of American sanctions, not because of anything in that, because it's a dictatorship where quality of life sucks because of the way the system is set up, because it's not a civilized Western liberal democracy. Should we go to the next call?
Roll it.
That it has been a major sponsor of terror organizations all through the Middle East, from the Houthis, to Hezbollah, to Hamas. Well, it's true.
It's not a Palestine action. It's nonsense. Anyway, one man's terrorism is another man's freedom.
Well, let me ask you that. So do you think Hamas, let me ask you first then, because it's important to what I just said. Of course, that only applies if you view Hamas, Hezbollah, and the Houthis as terror groups. Do you?
Here we go. Piers, grow up. This is an absurd conversation. It's like what you're trying to do is drag this conversation into one about the meaning of the word terrorist and who is and who isn't.
Okay, so first of all, the idea that one's terrorist is another freedom fighter is bogus. Like Stuart mentioned earlier, reality is something. It either is a terrorist organization or it's a freedom fighters. It's one of them, even if people disagree about what it is. Even if we say, you know, the idea what terrorist is like a bit broad and not certain, well, we can talk about specifics. Iran is supporting Houthis, Hezbollah, and Hamas. Does Roger Waters agree or disagree with that? Those organizations kill civilians, attack international shipping, kill Americans. Does he agree or disagree with that? But no, instead he goes, well, who knows what everything is, and you just want to talk about words, and we don't know anything. Like he's trying to, that's what he's doing, he's trying to escape from particulars. He's trying to, you know, he can talk broadly in abstractions. Oh, I support democracy. I support the people. I support, you know, people's rights. But then when it comes to specifics, he's like, well,
Who can know?
he doesn't want to say because he cannot admit to what he's actually saying. Jonathan?
Yeah, I mean, it reads as like just either ignorance or evasion, or maybe both. You know, one thing we're certain of, Israel's behind it, the US is behind it, you know, where he lives. But, you know, he seems ill-prepared. Somebody mentioned that it's interviews like this is why I don't watch Piers. All of his guests just use language tactics, not reason. He just doesn't seem prepared to answer some pretty basic questions. And to your point, he seems pretty ignorant of Iran's large role as a state sponsor of terrorism, of what everyone has agreed is terrorism.
Ginger in the chat says he's trying to say, please let's not define our terms too limiting. And this is exactly what Ayn Rand has called out, that when it comes to sort of talking with people or discussing evil, it's evil that benefits from vagueness of terms, from when concepts are not clearly defined. And this is exactly what you need to come up and say, okay, no. We have definitions. Let's talk about what specifically is happening instead of, you know, talking in broadest abstraction so we can all feel good about ourselves. Stuart?
Yeah, I mean, it's just a shame that Piers Morgan isn't better at this, because, I mean, I can just imagine what someone like Ayn Rand would do to this imbecile, to Waters. But Piers, you know, his instincts are right to a certain extent, but he just doesn't have the intellectual firepower to really nail down someone like Waters. And this is, you know, Waters is not alone. This is a typical evasive tactic. You know, well, how can we know, and how do we define our, you know, this is what evil does. You know, it's very rare that that bad people will be explicit about what they are saying. They will do this kind of nonsense.
Let's Jonathan?
Yeah, I mean, I'll just say for the record, I mean, I know we're talking about Walters, but I'm disappointed in the American government's response. President Trump at one point seemed to imply that he was going to literally come to the military aid of those protesting and support regime change. You would think towards a more rights-respecting government, but you know, seemingly that didn't happen, and I think it's too bad, because, you know, we've seen efforts in Iran over the years, protests of various sorts, of which the crackdowns, Stuart, to your point, have been absolutely vicious. You know, make Tiananmen Square look like walks in the park. Tens of thousands killed, and it's a shanda, if you will, that this regime is allowed to persist.
Let's take a look at another clip.
October the 7th is a very complex. On some level, it's very simple, i.e. it was an act of resistance by an occupied people. The armed wing, okay, the armed wing of an occupied people. That's what it was.
So it wasn't terrorism, it was an act of resistance.
That's one. I'm not going to get involved in your terrorism story. What I mean, who murdered most of the people? The Israelis did. Have you seen the piles of bombed out cars destroyed by Hellfire missiles? Thousands and thousands of them.
You think the Israelis killed most of the people who died on October the 7th?
Yes, I do. Yes.
What a load of nonsense, yeah. Honestly, Roger, seriously.
Well, isn't that interesting that you should say that? Look at the evidence, Piers. You've never even heard of Zaka, who made up all the lies about rape.
Where do you get your evidence from? Really?
It's very complex, and this was done by armed wing of an occupied people. But yeah, Israel murdered most of the people on October 7th. Like this, they gain certainty as soon as it becomes about something they don't like. Like they almost like discover Aristotelian reality when it comes to like actually criticizing Israel. Like they suddenly have certainty that it's no longer another man's terrorist, is one man's freedom fighter. But by the way, what is this even idea of like armed wing of an occupied people? You mean an army? Is Israeli war committed by the armed wing of the Israeli government? What is this idea of like separating the armed wing as if like the armed wing of Hamas like doesn't have anything to do with the rest of Hamas? They're a separate organization. They're like a separate kind of like no, they're led by some people. They're supported by some people. They are part of the same government. I mean, it's the same thing. How are you? Why is this like distinction being made? Even there, you can usually make bigger distinction in Western countries between the military and the government, right? They usually have much bigger separation than when it comes to terrorist organizations like Hamas, where usually the head of Hamas is the head of the military, right? And like directly, not in the American sense of the what is the term being used? The chief
control.
Commander chief.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, Jonathan, what do you?
Well, I'll just say, his whole shtick of kind of questioning the questioner and kind of finding how could you even ask me? Like, watch Miss Rand on the Johnny Carson show. Watch Miss Rand on the Tom Snyder show. She gets asked a question. She might think for a moment or two and then gives a thoughtful, eloquent, reasoned answer in plain English that anyone can understand. I think that's one of the things to me that was so exciting about philosophy when I discovered Miss Rand was that I had studied Habermas and Plato and Heidegger and all these philosophers that I didn't understand. And I started reading Ayn Rand, and it was material that didn't waste words as Waters does in this interview. So check her out on Carson, on Snyder, on Donahue, and really be inspired by an interview of someone with ideas and something to say.
Stuart?
What's striking to me is whenever he's challenged to, what is your source, he just gets this superior sneering, like, oh, like, well, everybody knows. So the smart people all know this is true. Never actually answering the question, never saying, yes, I got this from, the BBC or, this new Al Jazeera or whatever the source is. He doesn't name it. Just like, oh, well, the smart people, the people in the know, if you know kind of attitude. It's so elitist. It's so disgusting. And it's so evasive. He never answers the question.
I think we have a time for one more clip, so let's quickly take a look.
But to answer your question about me being successful in rock and roll and blah, yes, I am very and blah, 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 and all of that. Why do I do all of this? Because I believe, I hope you're listening, I believe in right and wrong.
Right.
I have a moral compass. Excuse me, let me finish. I have a moral compass which I allow to guide my actions. And also, I read a lot. And I don't just read the New York Times or the Sunday Telegraph. I get information and I have a lot of friends. I have a network of people all over the world who also, like me, believe in equal human rights for all their brothers and sisters all over the world, irrespective of their religion or their race or their nationality or ethnicity or anything else. And that is a fundamental thing that drives me in what I do. That's why I'm talking to you now today. Much as I adore you, obviously, that is why I'm here. Because I, to some extent, am a voice for the voiceless. And I get told this by the voiceless millions of times every year in response.
Yeah, I didn't know the Ayatollahs are voiceless, that, he needs to like speak for them. But again, look at the abstractions, right? I believe in human rights. I believe that everybody's equal. That's why I support Iranian state and Maduro's regime, because I believe in human rights. Like, once you take any particular thing he says, it's clear how bogus that, like, it's like the UN, right? You look at the UN Charter and it's like, oh, it's for, or the Human Rights Council, oh, it's just for standing up for human rights. And then what it actually turns into is criticizing Israel more than anything, in any regard, and being silent on pretty much almost anything any dictatorship in the world does. Jonathan.
Bonnie, who is a YouTube member, Bonnie Bertrand, thank you so much. It's only £5 a month. And as I said, we're the only network bringing you original programming inspired by Miss Rand 7 days a week. We are here. So thank you for your YouTube support. Thank you for being a member. Bonnie says, our infinite capacity for self-delusion on display with Waters. I'll agree with that. I'll only add that he's long gone past Grandpa Simpson level to like institutionalized level. And, to have to hear much more of that, I think would be a tax on anyone with reason.
Stuart?
Yeah, as you said, he spouts the right wording, oh, I believe equal human rights. But then, when you look at what he actually, what actually he supports and what actually he criticizes, it's very clear that that's not what's motivating him at all. Someone who believes in human rights for everyone does not support Maduro and the Iranian regime. It just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, so again, you have Roger Waters, who is like straight up supporting of Iran, of the government of Iran, of the Ayatollah. So let me do quickly something that should have been done a long time ago. So just quickly, Ali Khamenei, and for whoever gets the reference, well, you're a cool person. But Jonathan, any last thoughts from you, and where can people find you?
Just to thank to our subscribers, some exciting news. My book, A New Textbook of Americanism, is coming in Portuguese next month, which I'm very excited about. But in the meantime, check out something that has nothing to do with politics, and that is Dr. Peikoff's writings about the philosophy of pet ownership. Can you really love a dog? Leonard Peikoff and Ayn Rand on pets. It's at Amazon.
Stuart, any last thoughts, and where can people find you?
I will say I loved that book,
Okay.
and it applies to cats as well as dogs. Who Ayn Rand was more of a cat person, just FYI. I have a Substack at stuartmargolis.substack.com, and I'm also quite active on Facebook, although I probably should spend less time there because it's kind of a cesspool. But I'm there.
I think Maureen heard us when we were talking. She just stood up from her place. But with that, thank you guys. And you can find me on my YouTube channel, Damned Dan. All of the links are going to be in the description. Thank you guys for joining me today. Thank you everybody for watching, and bye-bye.